So today we are going to see about variables and the data types. In the variables, we are going to see instance variables, local variables, and class variables are also called as static variables. And in the data types, we are going to see primitive data types and reference data types. Okay, yeah. So So if you see this one, variables are used basically to store values, and each variable in Java has a specific type which determines size and value to be stored in a variable. So let me elaborate this definition. Okay, let's say take an example of int x equal to 10. You can see here int x equal to 10. Okay, so x is nothing but a variable name. Okay, x is nothing but a variable name, and 10 is nothing but a value you are assigning to the variable, that is x. Now if you see here, it is a integer. This is called data type. Okay, int is a data type. So why do we need a data type? Okay, basically data types are used to specify what type of data a variable can hold and how much data a variable can hold. Okay, so data types are used to specify two things: what what data a variable can store, and how much data a variable can store. Okay, let's say if you don't have this data type here, if you don't have this data type integer, for example, now if you see in your code, it's very tough to understand what we can pass to this x. There is only x is there, and so you can, what we can pass to that. Okay, it's an integer or a string or a double or a boolean or a boolean value, or what we can pass. Okay, it's a confusion, right? So by specifying the data type, it tell the user that okay, this x variable can only hold a numeric values, and how much data it can hold is, there is a certain range it can hold. Okay, we'll talk about that range and all in the data types. So let's comes to the variable topic back. So variables are basically to store the value. Okay, just one simple sentence. So variables are basically used to store the values. Okay, so how we can define the variable like this: int x equal to 10. Okay, if you want to define multiple variables with the same integer thing, you can define int x equal to 10, y equal to 5, z equal to 10, something like that. Okay, so when we talk about variables, there are the three kinds of variables are there. One is local variables, and instance variables, and class variables. Okay, so local variables are the variables which are defined in the methods. Okay, local variables are the variables which are defined in the methods, inside the methods, whereas whereas instance variables are the variables which are defined outside the method and inside the class. Okay, and when it comes to class variables are also known as static variables and are declared with static keyword in a class, but these variables are declared outside a method, constructor, or a class or block, but these are also defined inside the method, same as instance variables. These are defined outside the method but inside the class, but it has a keyword static. Like if this variable has a keyword data type, right, integer or something like that. Okay, also class variables have another keyword static. Will say I will give an example about that. So, and there are differentiations between these local variables, instance variables, and class variables. Okay, so some of the things we need to remember is that access modifiers cannot be used for local variables. Okay, what are the access modifiers? Yesterday we talked about public, private, default, protected. Okay, so these access modifiers we cannot use it for local variables, but whereas Instance variables you can use it, and for class variables also you cannot use it. It's not mentioned anything, it's nothing but you cannot use it. So a public you can use it, public default you can use it, okay, but you cannot use private and protected, I think so. Yeah, public, I think you can use it. Modifier can be used, okay, because there is a public static uh, variable will be there, and there is a private static variable will be there, but there is no use that private, giving a private static. Let's see. So when it comes to the visibility of variables, these variables can only be used within the method, and these variables are used within the class, and these variables can be visible. So uh, it's similar to instant, but other classes also can see it. No default value, so before using this variable those must be initialized. Instance variables have default values, okay. So default values is nothing but, let's say you defined a variable but you have not assigned any value, okay. So for the local variables there won't be any default value, you have to initialize. But for the instance variable, each variable will be getting a default value. So we have already seen local variables are used within the method where it is declared. So instance variables can be accessed directly by calling the variable name inside the class, okay. So it's nothing but instance variables can be used within the class, okay. And class variables also can be used within the class, but you can also call it by outside the class by just specifying a dot variable. So we'll see the different examples, then you will come to know all these differences very clearly. So till it is open you can just read all these things. So usually we'll be calling the variables, okay. So if it is a local variable we can directly use it with the name, okay. So if it is a instance variable and you wanted to call it from the other class, so you can specify it by calling the dot, okay. If it is a class variable, object dot variable name you can use to call the instance variables. If it is a class variable, you don't need to create the object for that class variable. With the help of class name dot variable you can use it, okay. So just going through the theory may not give you the complete details, we'll practice now. That's opening. Before that, let's take some small example, okay. So if you want to define int uh, id equal to some 101, okay. So this is how you define a variable. But now what is this, and what is this, and what is this, okay. So int is called as data type. Int is called as data data type, and id is called as variable name, and this 101 is a value, right. value. Okay, so if you see that in syntax, it's a data type, variable name, and value. Okay, so this is the syntax of variable declaration and initialization. Okay, if you want to declare a variable, just a variable, you can do like this. If you want to declare a variable, you can do like this. And for initialization, again you can do this. Okay, some value. This way also we can use it the variable. Okay, here if you see, we created the variable name, and we also assign the value. Okay, this is called declaration and initialization. So this is called a declaration part, this is called a declaration, and this is called initialization. Okay, you can also do it in two statements, because you want to declare now the variables, but later you want to use it. So yeah, you can do this. By doing this, you can able to achieve that one. Now let's see. So we are doing Java examples. Let me take a class called variable demo. So we know to write to start executing a class, first we need to have a main method. So let's say if you want to execute that particular class, yeah, you need to have a main method. So once you have created the main method, you can create a number of methods. For example, display. Okay, let me take some two things. For example, just two methods I have taken, display and print, and let me create some variables here. Int x equal to, let's say we'll take id only, int id equal to 10. Okay, so we know that, let me create another variable id equal to 11. Okay, and also let me create int again id equal to 12. Okay, so we know that to access any variables or methods inside a class, methods inside a class, we need to create an object for that class. What was the how can we create an object for this class? So class name space variable name, reference variable name, that's, let's say, var demo, and new, again class name, close and open brackets. Okay, so with the help of object, so this is very important. Okay, so in Selenium, while writing the automation code in Selenium, we'll be using only these kind of statements most of the times. Okay, variable demo, let me call id and do sysout. Sysout. Okay, and now var demo dot display var demo dot print. Okay, so let me print these values also here. Sysout sysout id sysout again id. Okay, So now we defined a class with certain methods and variables. So now you need to guess, so which is instance variables, which is local variables. For example, we said instance variables are the variables which are defined outside the method, but outside the all methods, but inside a class. Okay, now local variables are the variables which are defined inside the methods only. Okay, again, when it comes to class variables are the variables which are defined outside the methods and inside the class, but class variables will have the keyword. Class variables will have the another extra keyword, that is static, you know, prefixed by integer. Okay, so this is the data type prefixed by data types. Okay, so it's same as instance variables, but it will be having a additional keyword, that is static. Okay, so what is the use that by mentioning the static? Yeah, we'll explain you. Now it's the times to discuss about the scope and visibility. Okay, so this program is going to print val demo.id. Okay, so that is this one, and where demo.display, that is this one, and this one. Okay, so if you have any wonder that why where demo.id is not printing 11 or 12, why it is printing 10, okay, why it is printing 10 instead of 11 or 12, if you have any questions or any wonder, yeah, the reason is that local variables are only be declared inside the method and only be used inside the method itself. Okay, the scope of this variable are limited to this method only. Okay, you cannot use this id equal to 11 in the print. At the same time, you cannot use id equal to 12 in the display, or you cannot use it in the main method. Okay, the scope or the visibility of local variables are limited to that methods only. Okay, you need to remember. And the scope of or visibility of the variables, instance variables, are throughout the class. Okay, so from anywhere you can use these instance variables. Okay, let me define another variable, int a equal to some int a equal to some 5, for example. Okay, I can directly use, if you want to combine two variables, you can concatenate. So by using the plus symbol. Okay, so this id and a will be concatenated with the separation of semicolon. Okay, now you can see, you can use everywhere. So let me print this. First of all, let me print this one, and here also you can use a. You cannot use directly. So where, now let me run this class. So id, okay, let me make it bigger one. So 10, 11, 12, right? Now let me change this variable to 6, then you can understand much more clear. Now everywhere it will print can see 10, 11, 12, these are constant, but 6 is changed. Okay, so let me change this 11 to triple one. Now see the effect where and all it will be changed. So we used id everywhere, right? We used id everywhere. Now I am changing one of the id which is defined in the display. If I run this one, so only the id which is this that only the id which is mentioned in the display only is this changed, nowhere else, right? So that is the local variables effect. So if you change the instance variable, it will be affected throughout the class. If you change the local variable, it will be affected only in that particular method only. Okay, so the effect of the local variables are limited to that particular method where it is defined. Now see the effect of class variables. So let me print class variables here also. X. Okay, now one more thing is that we want to okay. You can as you are inside this class, you can use this static, this particular x directly by giving the x, like however we have given the a. Okay, here also we can do like this. Okay, so let me create class called a count. Okay, so this count has, so int, it has a public void count. It has a method called count, and we are printing, and you can define a variable public static int count equal to 10. Okay, now you are doing here, you are incrementing the count equal to count plus 1. Okay, so you are incrementing the count with 1, and that value you are assigning to the count back. Okay, and you are printing that count here. Now I'm creating a class called static demo. Okay, in the static demo I'm using a main method. Okay, in the main method I have, so if I want to call the methods and variables of a class, I need to create the object, right? I need to create an object. So what is that object? Count c equal to new count. I'm calling c dot count, a method c dot count. So let me create another three more objects. Okay, so you need to differentiate these variable names. Okay, again c1 dot count, c2 dot count, c3 dot count. So let me run this one. Now you can see 11, 12, 13. Okay, now let me create another variable int count1 equal to 10. Okay, let me do the same thing, count1 equal to count1 plus 1. Okay, now I'm printing count equal to this one. Okay, I'm sorry, this. Yeah. Sorry, it was some system got shut down. Yeah, please mute everyone. Yes, thanks. Now we are printing again. We are printing count and count one. So if you see the difference, if you see the difference, count is 10, count one is 10. Okay, if you see these two variables, if you try to differentiate these two variables, yeah, no problem. Thanks. So if you see the differentiate between these two variables, count one doesn't have static, nothing else, right? Everything is perfect. Let me run this variable, let me run this static demo once again. Okay, count has become 11, 12, 13, but the count one variable become 11, 11, 11. It's only 11, right? So that now you can understand the count, the static variable effect. Okay, if you mention the static variable effect, you can see that okay, the variable is initialized once, the variable is initialized once 10. Okay, so even after you create n number of objects, okay, so the variable value is not changing. For example, you have defined the variable value as 10 for the first time and you increment it to 11. Okay, now again you initialize the count class once again, but when you call again, that 11 has become 12. Again you initialize the count class again, and the 11 value has become, sorry, the 12 value has become 13, right? So first it has defined with, in the first time it has defined with 10, and immediately when you are printing it has become 11, and second time 11 plus 1 12, and the third time 12 plus 1 13 it has become. Okay, so even though you created n number of objects for the same class, okay, the static variable is initialized only once. It is initialized only once, and it is kept on increasing as and when we call the count method, right? But if you see the normal count one, the variable which is not defined as a static, the variable which is a simple instance variable, what happened, every time every time you create an object, okay, so this particular value is initialized to 10, and when we call the count, 10 plus 1 has become 11 and it is printed. Next time when you initialize the count, sorry, next time when we initialize the count class, that is c2, and again when you call count, this variable, this count one variable has become 10 and again incremented to 1, that is 11. But if you see the variable, if you see the count variable, okay, which is mentioned as static, okay, it is only initialized once, and every time it is incrementing as and when you call, it is incrementing to the new number, right? So if you see this thing in a program, I mean diagrammatically, so this is a class, this is a class called count, and it has a variable called static, it has a variable called static count, int count, count equal to 10, right? Now you have created you have created three instance variables for it. One is c1, you can also call it as three objects you have created for the count, that is c1, c3. So when you call c1.count method for the first time, so this has become static int count has become 10 and it was incremented to 11, right? Now what is the value of count? It is 11 and that has become 12 by calling the count method. Okay. So now what is the value of 12? Sorry, count. It is 12. So by calling the count method again, it has become 13. Right. So that is how it will be. So static variables are initialized only once. That is, it is initialized with 10 only once. But after that, a number of objects you create, the variable value will be remain remain same. Okay, it will not be reinitialized. If you increment, it will be incremented, and that later value, the latest value will be stored in the variable. Okay, and that can be used everywhere. Now here it has become 11, and in the next object we are using the 11 plus 1 only, not 10 plus 1. Okay, so that thing you need to remember. So maybe, so that is how static variables are used. But if you see the count one, it's always reinitialized as and when you create a object, it is reinitializing to 10, and 10 plus 1 has become 11. So next time when you create a new object, again it is reinitializing, and again the count one has become 10, and when you call the count method, it has become 10 plus 1, 11. But whereas static variables, it is only initialized once, okay, and every time it is keeping the latest value. For the first time when you create the c1 object, it is initialized to 10 and it has become 11. When you create the c2 object, it is already 11, the 11 plus 1, 12 it is become. When you create the new object, that is c3, so that time the count value is 12, and when we call the count method, it has become 13. Okay, so you need to remember the difference between static and instance variable. Instance variables are initialized every time you create an object, whereas static variables are only initialized once, okay, and it always keeps the latest value. Okay, so that's how. Let's say, let me print this value, the static variable value here itself. So instead of printing here, I'm not printing here, I'm printing in the static demo class itself. Okay, so there are two ways to print the static variables. One, you can call with the object count. Okay, sorry, not count one, it's count, but this is not the recommended way. So when I say static variables are also called as class variables, okay, you no need to depend on with the, you don't need to depend with the objects, because here there are a number of objects are created, but all these variables, all these objects are using this static variable, as a shared value, right? As a shared value. So you can also do like this. In another few minutes, I'm going to wind up the class. Okay. So for the first time, when I call C1, it is become 10, and when I call the count method, it has become 11. Okay, 11, and this 11 is used by C2 and it is incremented to 12, and this 12 is used by C3 and it is incremented by 13. So if you see, the static variable are shared by, one more point you need to remember, static variables are shared by all objects, all, all the objects, okay, created for the class. Okay, if you see, so all these objects C1, C2, C3 which are created for count class are sharing this static variable. Okay, so static variables you can also call by using the class name itself. Okay, like this. 11, 12, 13. Okay, so that is how you need to use the static variables. You can also call by object, with the help of object, but it doesn't mean properly. You recommended to call by with the help of class name. Okay, so in the tomorrow's class we'll be dealing with the data types.